I need to do the audio. Okay. The meeting will be audio recorded, and those in attendance should refrain from making any defamatory statements. There to be no other recordings of this meeting without prior authorisation of the committee. In case we're in the wrong committee, this is the no longer Development and Environment, it's the Environment and Community Services Committee. Do we have any, there's no one for video link? No, she's here. Any apologies? Going well. Any declarations of interest?
No received.
No. Any public participation? We'll be out of here soon.
No.
Okay. Business items. So we've got DESC 2.1 Environmental and Community Services Committee Charter, which everyone will have a copy of.
Excuse me, Ms. Chairman. Is it possible, I don't know when to make a motion to change the time to 10:30?
Now.
Yep. So I'd like to.
I'll second that.
Anyone like to talk? Any further information?
Just that during my job, I have constraints about times, and it would just be more helpful if I could have it at 10:30.
10:30 on a Tuesday. Is everyone happy with that?
Through you, Madam Chair, there was some talk yesterday about changing the Infrastructure Services Committee. I don't know where that discussion got to, but if there is a move to move that, it would mean that the two committees, which are now on the same day, would be on different days. So I just didn't know whether the committee wanted to consider that option too. It would save travelling for some councillors who were on both committees.
Thank you, Mr. GM. Look, because the time has been changed, that it will now fit in with leaving them on the Tuesday at 10:30, and the other one, which was advertised well in the charter as 1 o'clock, it should have been 12:30. So I'll be moving that it move back to 12:30 to have that same 2-hour link between there. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Okay, if everyone's happy with that change, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. DSC 2.2 Development Application number 170-2021 Warbirds Over Scone Air Show. I'll hand that over to Matt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this application is for the Warbirds Over Scone event, which is to be held at the Scone Memorial Airport on the 26th and 27th of March this year, between the hours of 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. The event will cater for approximately 4,000 people per day, and involves a range of activities, including an aerobatic displays of aircraft. There'll be food trucks and stalls, children's rides, helicopter joy flights, and etc. A similar event was held back in 2018, Warbirds Over Scone. So this would be a similar type event. There is proposed, if you turn to page, let's find the page. Turn to page 28. It shows the layout of the site. And you'll note at the top of the page there's a proposed car park on the northern side of Sader Road or Bunnan Road, with a pedestrian access across Bunnan Road to the airport site. Understand there will be traffic control measures in place to ensure the safety of pedestrians. There's a range of conditions that we've recommended in the conditions of consent in attachment 1. A lot of these conditions were imposed on the previous event that was held a few years ago, and that covers a whole range of issues such as security and emergency procedures and so forth. So we've recommended approval of the application subject to those conditions. The other thing I'll point out, there were 2 submissions received, 2 confidential submissions received, objecting to or raising concerns, I should say, in relation to the event. And those concerns were about the potential noise impacts of aircraft on the activities of these properties, these nearby horse breeding establishments. We've spoken to the applicant or the applicant's representative about these concerns, and I understand they've had discussions with the event or the Paul Bennett Air Shows running the event, and they've agreed to impose a no-fly areas over these properties to address their concerns. And I understand they'll be talking to the RAAF as well about keeping away from these properties as well to minimise noise impacts. So we've, as I said, we've recommended approval subject to conditions.
Thanks, Matt. Do we have any questions?
Yes.
Councillor Parry?
What has been the stakeholder engagement with this, and has there been a risk assessment both in terms of, you know, the two applicants? Was there a risk assessment done that and identified those risks prior to this DA? And also with businesses on the airport which may be disrupted, have they been consulted with?
So through you, Madam Chair, the application was publicly notified for 2 weeks, and all surrounding properties were did receive a letter from, or were sent a letter from council advising them of the event. So I think the consultation has been adequate in that regard with the surrounding properties. There is a risk assessment that was prepared, and that was lodged as part of the DA.
So basically there wasn't consultation leading up to the event, just when 2 weeks ago with the DA?
I understand the applicant may have undertaken another consultation before the DA was submitted, but I'd need to refer to the applicant.
Yeah, maybe. We're talking about two different processes here. One is the event process, which is being managed by council as well. What we're considering here is the DA. So Matt has given you advice on what DA consultation has been undertaken. Separate to that, the event managers have undertaken consultation and will continue to undertake consultation as the event works its way towards the final date of 27th of March.
So to be clear, the event managers have done consultation prior to the DA process?
My understanding, yep.
Okay. Do you have those documents?
I don't have anything. Maybe we can get something to councillors in the next week or the next couple of days. I'm just looking towards Beck to see if she can give me a nod.
If Beck needs to respond, that's
Yeah,
fine.
are you comfortable responding, Beck? Yeah. Come to the microphone if you don't mind. Thanks.
The event manager, Paul Bennett Air Shows, has had, and Mark, who represents council at the airport, have consulted with the businesses, as far as I'm aware, on the airport.
Okay, and is there documentation on that?
I think most of it has been verbal,
So no records of that?
apart from email correspondence to me when I've checked on that, yes.
Okay, so that you have checked on that and there is records? Okay,
Yes.
great, thank you.
Any further questions, Councillor Abbott?
Yes, so we're assessing, we're the applicant, aren't we? So council's assessing our own DA.
Yes, through the chair, that's correct. So council is the applicant, the landowner.
Okay, so that I find that problematic, that we're assessing our own development application here. I'm also not satisfied that we can actually mitigate the noise in order not to terrify the objectors. They've obviously noted that they're concerned about their animals, and I can't see how aeroplanes can be contained over the airfield. And so I can't see how council can actually mitigate those concerns. So through you, Madam Chair.
Any further questions?
Yes. My understanding is that previous air shows did not have a DA. Is that the case? And what's the difference between previous air shows and this one having a DA?
Through the chair, as I mentioned before, there was a DA for the previous Warbirds over Scone in 2018. And there was also one for Flight of the Hurricane, which took place in 2016.
But previous to that, when it was community run, were the DAs submitted?
We couldn't find any other development consents prior to that.
So through you, Madam Chair, the one Flight of the Hurricane in 2016, council wasn't the event manager for that air show. And, but obviously from 2018 it was. But again, I question the fact that council's the event manager, because how does Paul Bennett fit in? How can he be the event manager when we're the event manager? Through you, Madam Chair.
Through the chair, I understand that Paul Bennett is running the aerobatic display, the aerobatic show. But I think overall we are the event manager, is my understanding. I don't know if Beck wanted to add anything to that.
Paul Bennett is the event manager for both airside and landside, with a strong focus on airside, and council's job is also to partner with him as event manager and to support him through our process.
So Madam Chair, through you, so what is the arrangement between council and Mr. Bennett? And is there a financial arrangement? And when was he appointed event manager?
He was appointed as event manager before my time, so I would have to take that on notice and have a look for you, come back to you with an answer, unless someone else here has that answer.
Through you, Madam Chairperson or Chair Lady. So if it's my understanding that because we are not experts on running aerial shows, we've actually gotten a contractor, or we've gotten someone in who was working with us so that we actually have an event that we're in charge of or that we're controlling, but we've actually got expert advice so it actually runs smoothly. Is that basically how it's going?
That's perfect.
Thank you.
So through you, Madam Chair, as you know, all those years ago, I raised concerns that we took on this job as being the event manager because council is not in the business of running events like this. And so what's happened now is we've taken on the burden of risk, whereas we don't necessarily see the profits because obviously we're paying Mr. Bennett. So it still concerns me that we are now running an air show which we have no expertise in, and right now at this quite late stage we can't answer all these questions.
And anyone want to respond? I suppose it's just a statement more than a. But
Through the chair, I just need to point out that we're here as the consent authority for the DA, not as the
not for the air show,
the operator,
not for the event. Yeah. Has anyone else got any questions before I? No. I've just got a couple of quick ones, Matt or Beck. How are we advertising this without approval if we haven't got the DA approval already? Should we have not done that first?
Sorry, what was that?
How are we advertising this council event if we haven't got DA approval for it?
Well, I guess that's not ideal, but it has happened in this case. So,
we've
and
kind of got a
it's not
cart
that
before.
uncommon. It is fairly common for people to start advertising events before they actually get all their approvals in place.
So if we said no and the event's not on, there's quite a lot of money being spent.
Potentially, yeah.
Have we checked the races by any chance? I'm assuming you have. The races on that weekend?
There's no races on the
Okay,
weekend.
good. And the other thing, what fee was involved for us to hold this event as council, to council? Did we pay a fee?
Yeah, and that's been through the Corporate Services Committee, Madam Chair. The figure, I think, for Paul, so it's a contractual arrangement we've entered into with Paul Bennett, a fee for service. Beck, do you have the number off the top of your head? I just don't want to quote a number and get it wrong, that's all.
I'm sorry, I don't have it off the top of my head.
Can we circulate that to the committee? I just don't have it off my top of my head.
Are you talking about what we're paying him through the contract?
Yes, but I've just...
Oh, no, I'm not asking that.
Oh, are you? Because
The fee to council for holding an event. And if anyone holds an event, they normally pay a fee to council.
Charging the fee. For
Yeah. So have we paid a fee to council?
I believe so.
Can we have that circulated too? Thank you.
One last question. Insurance. I know that previously councillors, there's been air shows held out there where council hasn't had insurance. Do we have insurance for this?
Again, that's part of the event process, but yes, insurance is being negotiated. So we can enter into an insurance agreement quite late with this. We can continue to work with the insurers to cover all various aspects. Because the event details are changing, we're leaving the detail fairly late in the process to ensure that we cover all of the various aircraft and displays that are happening. But yes, it will be insured.
Am I allowed to talk about the Event Saver Fund here as well, which is essentially insurance?
You can, again, it's not related to the consent conditions that this committee is considering.
Okay, so what we're actually, the recommendation is to approve the development application. It's not the actual event, it's only the DA.
Just, Madam Chair, can I just,
Sure.
just for information, I believe Paul Bennett has never had a DA, Matt, in any of his air shows. This is the first time that we've decided. So will we have to have a DA, or are we just doing this to cover all bases?
Through Madam Chair, he had a DA for the last air show that was held.
Yeah, but in outside of Scone.
Outside, well, that's up to those relevant.
Individuals.
Yeah, just through you, Madam Mayor, I can add to that. Paul Bennett's advice to me the other day was that he hasn't had to do this level of compliance with other councils. My response, I guess, is that we're being, I guess, additionally diligent in that regard, and we're ensuring that a DA is put in place for this event.
Okay, we might,
Madam Chair, I have one more question. It's
final
all-
question, yeah.
on insurance as well. How can we be adequately insured for an event like this, given people and animals that have been brought to our attention? Well, particularly the animals at this stage that have been brought to our attention.
I assume it's done through a risk assessment process and, yeah, calculated on that. Is that correct?
So there's insurance for accidents and incidents that may occur on the day, which may harm or damage people or property, and animals too. There's also insurance for incidents that may stop the event from occurring. So strong weather events, high wind. The COVID issue can't be insured against unless there is a public health order, and that's where the other insurance comes in from the state government. So all events and incidents can be insured, and that's, I guess, why we're still negotiating with the insurance company, because they need to know what events are on, and the events are still being finalised.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, is it not the case that we pay Mr. Bennett a fee rather than him pay us a fee?
No, that's correct. That's what I said before. We've entered into a contractual arrangement for services, so we've paid Mr. Bennett a lump sum. I believe it's probably a commercial and confidence figure, but councillors can be given that out of the session.
Okay. No, okay, so we're going to move or not move this. It's, as I said, it's the DA, it is not the actual event. So can we have a raise of hands?
I'll so move it, Madam Chair.
Mover, seconder? Second. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Page 29. Marywall Heritage Conservation Area. I'll hand it over to Matt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So July last year, Council supported a planning proposal to amend the boundaries of the Marywall Heritage Conservation Area by amending the heritage map sheet as part of our LEP, and to forward that planning proposal on to the Minister for Planning for a gateway determination. 28th of September, we received the gateway determination that the LEP amendment should proceed, subject to conditions. And a copy of that is in attachment 1. One of the conditions of the gateway determination required us to update our assessment, or to include an assessment against the Upper Hunter Local Strategic Planning Statement, which we did. We then placed the planning proposal on public exhibition from the 29th of October to the 26th of November, and we received no submissions. The planning proposal was also referred to Heritage New South Wales for comment, And a copy of the response from Heritage New South Wales is provided in attachment 3 to the report. They basically didn't raise any major concerns with it, and we're happy for it to proceed. We've now come to the next step, basically to advise council of the outcome of the community and agency consultation and to seek a council resolution to now proceed with the amendment and refer the amended LEP to Parliamentary Council for legal drafting. So we've recommended that council do that, and so we can finalise the LEP amendment.
Do we have a mover for that?
Yeah, can I speak? Oh, it's got to be moved, is it? Yeah, right, I'll move it.
Second. Okay, discussion. Councillor
Yeah,
Campbell.
thank you. Look, it's been quite well discussed at various avenues in Merriwall, and it's not perfect. There's a lot of black and blocks and things in there that have no heritage value at all, but I don't know how that you actually identify those and put them out without having it in such a hodgepodge as it is. So while I have reservations about it, the point is that we have to have something there in place. And so that's the reason that I support it. Yes, it is an advantage, but I don't know how we're going to get to absolutely perfect to say that all that part's of heritage or it's conservation. It's not, but you can't do that. You have to have some sort of a plan. So I move it.
Sorry, just to be clear, from what Councillor Campbell said, there's not currently a heritage plan in place, or is this an amendment?
Through the chair, this is an amendment to an existing.
So there is one in place. Yeah.
That's correct.
Any speakers against? Any speakers for? Any further speakers?
I just want to mention, just to further to Councillor Flaherty's question, that this came through the Heritage Committee as well. And in fact, from what I remember, Madam Chair, Ms Atkinson had details of many years ago when this was actually first brought about, and the Heritage Committee was certainly happy with this.
Good.
Okay. Nobody else? Okay, move the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Any councillor questions? For the new councillors, this is an opportunity to ask questions in relation to usually applications that are before this committee. So we can't kind of get off tea onto other committees. And so, any questions? Councillor Abbott?
Yes, I have a few and some comments. So, Madam Chair, with respect to Sarah Howie's letter, 19 Main Street and that development, what is happening with that?
Through the chair, that application is still under assessment. I understand we've gone back to the applicant, requested further information.
Thank you. And also, I've been contacted by Mr. Michael Reid from Murrurundi, who has expressed some level of frustration with his interaction with council and undertakings that council took in regards to electric vehicle stations. And he's quite disappointed that it's come to an impasse where basically council has ceased their discussions with him. So I just would like some further information on that, because he's extremely frustrated.
Through the chair, I understand our Infrastructure Services Department was dealing with that issue, so I'll have to take that on notice and refer that on.
Thank you. And just as a comment, I'd just like to, given this the first meeting of this rename committee, I'd like to object to the name, because it makes me very concerned that it's lost the name development, because this is about development. This committee deals with development applications. And I'm very concerned about the subsuming of many of the Section 355 committees in under this one. I mean, I think community services should be its own standing committee. I don't understand why it isn't. From the past, over my 5 years in council, I've noticed that subcommittees tend to, those ones without support eventually wither and fade away. And I think that's a real loss for the community should that happen, and I have seen it happen. There is much frustration. Also, I just want to comment on the fact that we put things on exhibition over the summer period. There is much frustration with that. I know that was something that Mrs. Howie raised, that the timing of the exhibition is really problematic. And the community is quite cynical when council does that. Basically, I'd just like to comment again with these committees, the Section 355 committees being subsumed, and as councillors, it's quite problematic knowing what to choose to go on, because as the GM noted yesterday, many of these committees may not be in existence. And I think the community involvement is very, very important. And I think the pandemic has shown how much we all need each other, and how, as a council, we need to listen, and how we indeed are all in this together. So I feel by subsuming these committees, we're effectively drawing up the drawbridge, and therefore we're removing a vital contact along with a channel of community expertise, which we've seen at many of our Section 355 committees. So those are my comments, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. I'd just like to mention or follow up that letter from Sarah. Would there have been a response as to the process that it's still under advisement?
I'll have to take that on notice and follow that up.
Yeah.
Just a question relating to something that Sue said. The exhibition over the Christmas period, is there anything that we can do to avoid that, whether it's delaying those applications until the new year? Because I can see how the community would treat that cynically, and, you know, certainly at all levels of government, when things are done just before the Christmas break, it's viewed cynically.
Through the chair, traditionally we've extended the notification period over that Christmas period by, you know, could be up to four weeks, could be a notification period, but I'll have to check this particular one to see when it was notified, when it came off. But that's what we would typically do.
Through you, Madam Chair, just to further response, you'll recall that at the last council meeting in January, you also noted the letter from the Minister, which puts very clear expectations on council in regard to timeframes. So that's the balancing act. We've got the state government pushing for faster processing times. As Matt said, we try to take into account the fact that people aren't necessarily out and about and doing their normal business in summer, but we do have competing drivers.
Would it be possible in the future to look at, you know, what those timeframes are, that perhaps the DAs are, you know, it's a bit more of a push before Christmas to get them out, or to have them afterwards, and to manage those timeframes a bit better for community consultation?
Through the chair, we can certainly look at that.
Through the chair, I think it's also a balancing act between when people are putting in DAs, if they have to wait longer, there's also a frustration on that part. So on one hand, we're trying to be more efficient in our process. And I think if we just stuck to the guidelines that are actually mandated to us, then I think we're doing the best we can.
Or they could finish that DA sooner to get it out on public exhibition, being mindful of balancing the community.
Take them on statements. Thank you. Any further councillor questions?
Yes, I have some.
Councillor Campbell.
Madam Chair, any update on that building, the service centre just above McDonald's in Scone? It's been passed, hasn't it? My understanding it was passed, or is it not going to happen?
Through the chair, that was the development application for the service station that was approved by the Land Environment Court.
Yeah.
Yes, I haven't heard anything from the applicant in relation to that.
My second thing is there any further information on that Collingwood Road subdivision crossing the Merriwar River? Because I think there was some debate by the particular applicant as to just how much water was going to go down the Merriwar River. Well, if any photos are around of just the volume of water that went down the Merriwar River, the proposed pipes that were put in, and I took advice from a particular concreter, unless they're put in properly, then they would be washed away. Now, if that happens and council allows that subdivision and that section, who is responsible then for the repair of that going across the river? Would council be responsible?
Do you mean due to the infrastructure being put in?
Yeah, that's right. Yes. Yeah. because I'm bringing it up here, it's infrastructure, however, but because the DA, it was the DA that we objected to. We asked for more information. Is there anything further?
Yes, through the chair, we're still waiting on that information from the applicant. But I understand it would be on a private right of carriageway, is my understanding, not a public road. So the bridge would be owned by the owner of the land.
Would you be able to get some more information on that, please?
Yes.
I did email regarding a concern from Brenda and Peter Swain. I'm wondering whether regarding the washout there and also the clarification of that road, whether it is a council road or whether it is actually a Crown Road. But one big question did come up was how can that road be accepted by council? I think there isn't a policy, and could I ask that that policy be noted and sent to that particular person? My understanding is that the road has to be brought up to a standard acceptable to the council engineering staff, but I'm speaking perhaps out of turn. I'm asking for advice on that. The dwellings erected on that Warrandyte site, as I was told, there's probably 20.
I think that's an infrastructure question. I think that road would be an infrastructure question this afternoon.
Yeah, that's right. But I think the clarification of the status, I think, had to go back to just going, okay, that's fine. I've already put it into the infrastructure. So, yeah, anyway. I think it was referred to you too, Matt. But anyway, look, I'm happy to that is it's already gone in there, but because of the clarification of the lots, etc., and the road, I thought that would come through Matt. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell.
Madam Chair, just one, Matt, to you. I asked the question before, the investigation into the DAs with buildings within the airport boundaries. Has that been followed through at all?
Through Madam Chair, yes, we have got a list of DAs within the airport boundaries. However, we need to sit down and compile that list so it's easy to read and understand. It's a bit all over the place at the moment.
Any further questions?
Madam Chair, just upon reflecting on what Mr. Pringle said about the EV question and Mr. Reid being infrastructure, I just want to note that communication Mr. Reid had was with Mr. Jakes. So that comes, Mr. Jakes is part of Mr. Pringle's department. So I just wonder why that would be infrastructure, Madam Chair.
Through the chair, I will follow that up with Mr. Jakes, but I understand that infrastructure services were involved in the discussion as well because the EV charging stations were on the roadside, on the edge of the road. So they had some involvement in that, but I will follow it up.
Thank you, Madam Chair, only because we are trying to do this as a council, as obviously something that's very important with climate action and in a quest to stop more petrol stations being developed and popping up like they are left, right and centre. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Emma. There's no further questions. Declare the meeting closed. 10:35. Thank you for your attendance.